A French opera singer, a Chinese emperor, and a Nazi killing spy all have in common. They were all women, they were all underestimated, and they all made history. Today, we're talking about the women who broke rules, outsmarted empires, and burned down convents. Literally. Today, our episode is called Sorry, I'm a Badass. From Wu Zetian, the only female emperor of China, to Julie Daubeny, the sword-fighting opera singer who set fires for love, to Nancy Wake, the World War II spy who killed Nazis with her bare fucking hands. Now, okay, I'm in no way saying that I'm on the same playing field as these women, but I remember the first time that I was like, I'm kind of a badass. I was working on a golf course in Las Vegas as a cart girl, and I feel like all of our women listeners know where this is going because I only met the most upstanding people in the world, right? No. One day, a degenerate reached up my skirt and just got a whole handful of vagina. So without hesitation, I turned around, punched that motherfucker, got scared because I just punched a fully grown man, hopped in my golf cart, and went back up to the clubhouse where I told my ex-mafia boss what happened. He grabbed a baseball bat, a golf cart, a couple of our biggest caddies, and headed out on the golf course where he did not find him because the guy ran, probably off to ice his bloody nose. I also wonder what he told his wife. Okay, so I want to talk about Wu Zetian. She rose from concubine to nun to empress to emperor. And no, I didn't just misspeak. Okay, she didn't just sit by the throne, she took it. And I'm talking about Wu Zetian, the first and only female emperor in the entire history of imperial China. She ruled efficiently and brutally. Wu Zetian was born in 624 CE to a relatively well-off family. She was educated, clever, and not too keen on spin and silk, like she was expected to at the time. At the age of 14, she was brought into the palace of Emperor Taizong as a concubine. A concubine is a woman who bears children for the emperor, primarily male heirs, and they had a lower social standing than the primary wife. When the emperor died, she was supposed to live out her days in a convent, as was custom to imperial concubines. But Wu had other plans. She fought her way back into the palace by catching the attention of the next emperor, Taizong's son, Gaozong. Okay, here's where it gets complicated. Because she didn't just cozy up to Gaozong, she became his partner. And at first, she worked behind the scenes, handling court politics, while he dealt with persistent health problems. But eventually, she was running the empire. After Gaozong died, Wu installed her sons as puppet emperors while she handled business. And then, in the year 690, she decided, fuck it, I'm taking the bitch. And she declared herself Emperor of China, a title no woman has ever taken. She started her own dynasty, the Zhou dynasty, and ruled for 15 years. Now, okay, was she ruthless? Yeah. But I feel like all women who come up and rise through the ranks of male-dominated fields kind of have to be, right? She had rivals executed. Some accounts accuse her of poisoning political enemies. There's even a possibly made up, possibly maybe not made up story that she killed her own daughter to frame a rival empress. But it's worth noting that most of these more sinister tales come from the later Confucian historians who, let's be honest, weren't huge fans of women in power, especially ones who preferred Buddhism. What's often left out is what she actually did as a ruler. Wu promoted people based on merit, not birthright. She expanded civil service exams so that smart men from lower social classes could rise through the ranks. She poured resources into public works, strengthened the military, and stabilized the economy. So why don't we hear about her more? Well, after her death, the men who came back into power did everything they could to erase or discredit her legacy. They called her a tyrant. They called her a seductress. Some even claimed she used black magic. But Wu Zetian ruled one of the most powerful empires on earth successfully for nearly 2 decades. And she did it in a system that wasn't designed for women. It was built to deny them basic visibility. She was a strategist, a political genius, and possibly the most powerful woman in Chinese history. But history has a funny way of circling back. Because today, we remember Wu not as someone's concubine, but as a woman who looked at the imperial throne and said, I'm taking that bitch. And my favorite quote of hers is, let those who speak ill of me speak, which is the most badass pull-up in history. Did you know one of the most badass women in history had the code name White Mouse? Nancy Wake was born in New Zealand in 1912 and raised in Australia. Before the war, she worked as a journalist in Europe, which gave her a front row seat to the rise of fascism, and Sis was not impressed. In 1939, when Germany invaded France, she joined the French resistance. And what followed is one of the most legendary resumes in espionage history. That word is so hard for me. Espionage. Y'all know what I'm talking about. The Gestapo gave her the nickname the White Mouse because she was impossibly good at disappearing. They knew she was operating under their noses, but they couldn't catch her. By 1943, she was on the most wanted list with a 5 million franc bounty on her head. One of their top agents said, she's the most dangerous of all Allied spies, which is high praise from the enemy. At first, she worked as a courier, delivering messages and smuggling supplies under the Nazis' noses. Eventually, Nancy had to flee France and made her way to Britain, where she joined the Special Operations Executive, which was basically the real-life version of Bond's MI6. There, she trained in guerrilla warfare, weapons handling, explosives, and hand-to-hand combat. And then, because apparently this school wasn't hardcore enough for her, she parachuted right back into Nazi-operated France to lead a resistance cell of over 7,000 fighters. And she didn't just coordinate missions, she led them. She blew up bridges, sabotaged trains, ambushed German convoys, and when her unit's radio codes were lost, she biked over 300 miles in 72 hours through enemy territory to replace them. She even killed a German soldier with her bare fucking hands. Nancy was married to a French businessman named Henry Fioca. He begged her not to get involved, but she refused. When she had to flee, she asked him to come with her, but he stayed behind. She was captured and arrested in Toulouse, but her boss claimed she was his mistress, and she was trying to conceal her infidelity to her husband, which wasn't true, but it did work. She was released 4 days later. The Gestapo caught her husband, tortured him, and eventually executed him because he refused to give up her location. She didn't find out his fate until after the war and subsequently blamed herself. My favorite quote of hers is, I hate wars and violence, but if they come, then I don't see why we women should just wave our men a proud goodbye and then knit them balaclavas. And I have no fucking clue what a balaclava is, but that sounds so fucking badass.
Balaclava.
Yeah, what is it? Is it a sweater?
It's like a ski
A
mask.
ski mask?
It's like a form of cloth headgear that like goes over your face and just has your eyes.
Oh. Okay.
Yep.
Badass.
Badass. Maybe scary in certain contexts.
Yeah. Yeah. Like if you broke into my home wearing a balaclava, I don't think I'd like that. Next, I want to introduce you to one of the most brilliant and delightfully scandalous women in history. She was an opera singer, an expert sword fighter, convent arsonist, bisexual heartbreaker, and an unapologetic rule breaker. I'm talking about Julie d'Aubigny. Julie was born in 1673 in France to a nobleman who trained the king's pages in swordsmanship. So, from a young age, she learned to ride, fence, read, and think like a man. Julie was married in her teens to a man who was off shipped off to work in the south of France. Left to her own devices, she fell in love with a fencing master. They fled to Paris after her lover killed someone in an illegal duel. Julie was openly bisexual, and according to records, she once had an affair with a noblewoman whose parents disapproved so much that they had their daughter hidden in a convent. But that didn't stop Julie. She broke into the convent, stole a dead nun's body, placed it in her lover's bed, and then set fire to the bitch. She was charged with arson, kidnapping, and body snatching. The two fled town for a few months, but Julie's lover eventually returned to her family. She's not ride or die. Eventually, Julie joined the Paris Opera, where she went by the stage name La Maupin. Julie often wore men's clothing, not to pass as a man, but because she just kind of liked the style. You'd love Gen Z, Julie. If a man insulted her, she had no problem dueling him, often winning. She once beat 3 noblemen in a single night. And she was also briefly banned from Paris for dueling. Most people watched Chapel Roan's VMA performance and saw Joan of Arc, but I watched it and I said, this is so clearly Julie d'Aubigny. My favorite quote of hers is, I've killed men for less than that. So let's recap. Wu Zetian hijacked an empire. Julie d'Aubigny lit a convent on fire for love. And Nancy Wake killed a Nazi with her bare hands. Meanwhile, it took me 5 days to research this episode because I couldn't stop playing solitaire and going, I have so much to do. But being a badass is more than just parachuting into enemy territory. Sometimes it's about doing the right thing, standing up for the little guy. Sometimes it's screaming, Free Palestine. Sometimes it's not about being everyone's cup of tea. So the next time someone tells you you're too mouthy, too assertive, too bitchy, just know you're in good fucking company.